Welcome to Cordkillers Reckoning. The world of entertainment is turned upside down, and we are just trying to find out how to watch what we want, when we want, where we want, whatever we want. I'm Tom Merritt. Where's the good stuff, Brian?
Oh, man, the good stuff is inside your heart, nestled up to a little critter I like to call forgiveness. Forgiveness to the internet, forgiveness to Spectrum, forgiveness to us for starting late.
No one on the internet knows you're a dog or that you started late if they download you on demand, I guess. Right?
Yeah,
so we're good.
TiVo crack. You know, a quick side story before we start. I had the idea, technology wizard magician brain engaging. I was curious how on earth over a 56K modem a TiVo was able to download the hour-long program of like This Month in TiVo that they would do all the time. And eventually I don't know if I looked it up online or actually just stayed up and caught it, but it's like they would buy paid programming slots at like 2:30 in the morning and then just make sure to go and record that, and then it would show up as this week's update. And then I thought to myself, like, oh, there's something here. Little did I know I was inventing a thing that would come to be known as podcasting. I realized, oh, wait, your time slot no longer matters. You can just have a show in the middle of the night, and it could be one of the most popular things on to all TiVo watchers.
Because they'll just watch it whenever, you know?
And then later, you and I worked for a network where we were one of the most popular things on TiVos.
Yes. TiVo, I kind of miss you.
Yeah. Oh, no. TiVo 1.0 experience was like, to be honest,
it was magic.
That's the feeling that I get from AI these days. Like the internet, the tearing down of the barriers to distribution of content, and AI, all similar vibes.
The only difference is there's no one at Best Buy trying to talk me into Claude when I came in for ChatGPT, like they did with Ultimate TV from Microsoft when I came in for a TiVo.
Oh, that's hilarious. That is hilarious.
Not that I'm trying to say Claude is the Ultimate TV of GPTs. It was just the first thing that came into my mind. So let's move on to the supply run.
Supply run.
Since the days of CBS All Access, Viacom, which is now called Paramount, has streamed live channels in its apps. They're all in one service now called Paramount Plus Showtime, but there are multiple live linear versions of channels. You get a Showtime East, a Showtime West, and even your local CBS station. I even get them through Paramount Plus as an add-on to Apple TV Plus, which isn't even in the Paramount app. The fact that most people don't know this, which is also true to an extent in Peacock, there's some live local channels there too, led them to be somewhat exasperated by the news that Max is testing linear feeds of HBO in the United States. They include HBO and HBO 2, as well as HBO Signature, HBO Zone, and a few other channels that show dramas, comedies, classic shows, movies, etc. This isn't even the first time HBO has done this. They already do this on Max in Europe. And Crave, which streams HBO channels in Canada, streams linear channels of HBO on its service in Canada. Now, Max says it wants to do more themed channels. It's just starting with the HBO stuff, and maybe even do personalized linear channels where it would take what it knows about you and put stuff in a linear channel made just for you. Engadget welcomed this news as just cable 2.0. Brian, what do you think?
I think that is a cheap pop of a headline, and I think that it denies some of the core things humans want. Number one, of course, we want stories. We're narrative running machines. Number two, think about it structurally, going back to the dawn of time. Where did we hear the stories? Gathered together at a campfire where all of us heard the same story at the same time. Now, due to various reasons of technology, the breakdown of the monoculture and of the what was 3 networks or all the cable networks became this giant splintered thing. We would engage in these cultural touchstones of binge watching, but we're seeing more and more people want to feel like we're all watching the same thing at the same time. So to be honest, this is long overdue. And I think the only reason we didn't get this earlier is because of intractable contract stuff.
I don't know. I think we haven't gotten this earlier in more services because no one uses it. I mean, CBS All Access had this years and years ago, and they still have it. They haven't taken it away. But I find that people say they want this sometimes and then never take advantage of it.
Well,
So I wonder if Max is doing it less because there's pressure to do it and more because they're looking at fast channels and saying, well, what if we could bill it as it's like fast, but HBO? It's not fast, it's HBO.
Let me walk back some of the universality with which I proclaimed my opening bid, because you're 100% right. People don't actually use it. However, people do like to lie to themselves to say that this time they're really going to use it. And they always like knowing that they could if they want to. Like, for example, think of all your TikTok videos and your YouTube shorts. Virtually none of them are watched all the way to the end. But because it feels good to just say, bored now. And that is a gift. And likewise, even if nobody actually watches all these, where it's like, yeah, I'll just turn on some HBO and leave the room.
I'm with you a little bit. I think one of the reasons people haven't used these more often is they're hidden. I had to dive deep to find the CBS channel. I had to know it was there and go looking for it. I think what would make these work better is if they just had a big button that said, don't know what to watch, click here. And that's where the part of this that is a personalized channel, which it can say like, look, we know what you like. Let's just give you a channel for that when you don't know what else to do. And you can keep looking for something else to watch while it's on. It can just play. Because that's the beauty of fast channels, why Pluto and Zumo and those work, is people turn it on and they're like, oh, something's playing already. So give them that.
Okay, so let me throw this out to the audience, cordkillers@gmail.com. And part of the reason I'm getting this plug in early is because, oh man, you guys showed up in force this week. Like the emails were all popping. And so I want you guys to participate because what Tom just described was, don't know what to watch, press this For You button. But I would never touch that button because I am so desperately afraid of getting bubbled. I would only touch the what is everyone else watching button.
Ooh, okay. I like that. I like that. That's a good improvement. Yeah.
Hate watching it. Like even if it's stuff I actively hate, I could sit there in my smug castle feeling superior saying, other people like this? It's
Yeah. Because the reason I went with a button is people hate autoplay in this situation. For some reason, with Pluto and Zumo, we know that it's autoplay. So we don't call it autoplay and we don't get mad that it autoplays. We're like, oh, it's like TV. TV is on when we don't get mad at television stations for autoplaying when we turn on the TV historically, right? And so with Max, if they autoplayed this channel, I think people would get mad because they're like, no, Netflix shouldn't autoplay. But maybe they should. Maybe they'll just get used to it and be like, oh yeah, when you turn on Max, your channel is up there and playing, and then you can look around and find something else. Or I think you're right. Like the what does everybody else think is popular label makes it way more intriguing.
Well, and that's an interesting structural difference because we already have a kind of For You autoplay with Netflix in the form
and TikTok.
But with Netflix specifically, you go there to watch something else, but it interrupts you with a For You preview. Usually,
but people don't like that.
They
right?
say they don't like it, but if they actually didn't like it, it wouldn't still be around, right?
True.
And there are things I've started watching because of that.
Netflix would have killed it. You're right.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, and so what I'm suggesting is, what if HBO does a similar, but opposite thing, where their feed is a what everyone's watching at that moment thing. So now you would lose the curation aspect, but you would have the gift of it feeling like, oh, there's a crowd already here. Like, imagine if they also, imagine if when you loaded, this would be a tiny structural thing that would fundamentally change your experience. The moment anybody ever opens an HBO app, it not only is playing whatever channel is the official channel, but it also has a number of other people who are watching this right now with you.
Yeah.
And it's like, that sounds like a tiny thing, but that is the reason that YouTube became the hit that it was, is because it just added a score underneath each video.
Yeah. And then I think you can have a For You option, like, oh, I want to see what they would pick for you instead of what everybody else is. Then you can get that option. I don't know that people use it, but it's one of those like nice to have it there kind of situations. But I do think that linear channels and live video are being popularized by these fast channels, and they're showing that people do like it if it's packaged correctly. So I fully expect to see more of these kinds of attempts to package it correctly. And I think it's incredibly smart of Max to say some of the best television on the planet is from HBO. At least that's what everybody says. So let's, forget your Pluto channel and your old reruns of Gunsmoke. What if you get The Wire and Game of Thrones, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I guess I did think of the one flaw of HBO doing that would be HBO is known for some saucy content with surprises. And for example, imagine if you tuned into the Game of Thrones first episode about 40 minutes in.
But I mean, that's the way TV was for most of its history, right? So
sure.
Yeah. No, it's a good point, though. I think people will have a different expectation now than they did back then. But I don't think this is just cable 2.0. I think I'm softening up on that criticism because I think it's comes from a lazy point of view sometimes of like, well, if it's not ad-free Netflix with everything on the planet, as I was promised, which you were never promised, then it's just cable. And I think that's lazy. On the other hand, it can also be a criticism that is saying, hey, maybe do better. Maybe do something that isn't something that sounds familiar. Come up with something that I've never heard of before. And I don't know what that is because I've never heard of it before.
If you had heard of it before, it would be a different animal altogether.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm with that a little bit. Like we are now moving from the streaming phase of experimentation and audience attraction into consolidation. But then the next step is innovation. Like after they've consolidated, and it's going to take a couple of years for us to move through this phase. And we all know like, okay, these are the winners. These are the folks who are going to bring us our streaming options. Then it's time for them to really compete with each other and come up with stuff to make you want to prefer and keep them over the others.
Well, and this is where it's terrifying to a lot of brands because a brand basically is like, just ask the Coca-Cola company how easy it was to deal with the fallout when they made an unpopular change to the beloved Coke brand. Usually the hedge that you see are the sub-brands like HBO Spooky or HBO Love or what have you. And unfortunately, you don't get, if the point is to tap into the everybody's there, the more niche you get, the less you get the everybody's there experience.
Yeah. Thankfully, you will understand that it is important, and we've done a lot of research into bringing you new Cordkillers.
Yeah, you know what? A lot of people think that we're just playing reruns of the same episode. And while you could be forgiven for thinking that we're saying the same thing for nearly 2 decades, in fact, we can report that each episode has been new. And it's a secret technology we like to call, looks left, looks right, money. You see, as long as we have patrons who head on over to patreon.com/Cordkillers, that's right, patreon.com/Cordkillers, you get on the inside. Not only do you get early access to the full experience and exclusive access to our After Talk segment, but you'll be keeping us loud, live, and independent. I think we've been independent much longer than we were ever with a network now.
Yeah, no, we have. You're right. And
That's
one
crazy.
can tell us what to do except you. You are the person in charge of us if you're a patron. Patreon.com.
We used to
/Cordkillers.
have one boss to tell us what to do, and now we have hundreds of bosses.
Trust us, we prefer it that way.
Yeah.
We really do. So become one of them. Patreon.com/Cordkillers. On to the search party. As we get closer to the return of season 2 of Severance on January 17th, we get more and more trailers. A new one came out showing you a few more things of what's going on between the innies and the outies. One thing I noticed in this trailer, Brian, is that there's a chance that they're going to turn it on their head instead of the innies wondering what happens outside with the outies, it looks like it may be more about, the outies wondering what's going on inside with the innies, and a little role reversal.
No, your idea is so good. I'm certain it's right. Okay, if that was the big twist, is that almost the entire season is outies only, then I would make sure that I would deceive the audience into believing
and putting out a trailer of all innie stuff. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And also, they gave a plausible, they gave just enough of a plausible reason why they would come back to work. Because we have 4 different characters. Wait a minute, what happened to John Turturro's character? Like, I remember thinking there was no way for him to come back. I thought he died or something.
I thought so too, but maybe I'm remembering it wrong as well. Huh.
Oh, man.
Huh. I think I need to rewatch season 1.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe that's another thing I do, is to drum up interest by confusing people.
Did he die, or am I wrong?
Yeah, I don't know. I did love the little twist at the end. That is one of my favorite lines. Like, why are you younger than us? Is like, because of when I was born.
Yeah, no, that was good. White Lotus season 3 will come to us in February. They didn't give us an exact date, but we'll get the season with Lisa from Blackpink in February. A spring 2025 premiere for The Last of Us season 2. Even less of a precise date, but I guess sometime before June 20th, we will get The Last of Us season 2. At the end of 2025 or late 2025, we'll get the prequel to Game of Thrones, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, and new Euphoria episodes are coming in 2026. This is all thanks to some HBO announcements. The Harry Potter TV series coming to Max is still casting, and that is now scheduled for 2027.
Very cool. Man, good TV.
So Last of Us would be the one I would think you'd be most excited about there, right?
Yeah, and weirdly, I'm in that middle ground where it's like I kind of know everything, having played the game. It kind of makes me want to go play the game again.
Yeah, there you go. Paulus is saying, didn't his Audi retire? And Gambling Man claims that Turturro's character is still alive. So there you go.
Okay.
Doctor Who Christmas special Joy to the World will have Bridgerton star Nicola Coughlan. There's a trailer out for that coming to Disney Plus and the BBC December 25th, written by Stephen Moffat, who wrote some stories for the Russell T Davies original run of Doctor Who and is back to writing stories for him again, even though he also ran Doctor Who after Russell T Davies left the first time. The episode is directed by one of the Bridgerton directors, Alex Sanjeev Pillai.
That's one that I think I've only seen 1 or 2 of the Doctor Who Christmas specials. Does it still hold a special place in your heart?
Yeah, it does. I'm a big fan. I like Ncuti Gatwa's character. I do think that the Russell T Davies return has been a little scattered just because of the Disney Plus distribution deal, and there's some questions about whether they're going to extend it after the first 2 seasons and all of that. But I do think it's a little bit back on track, so I'm looking forward to this. Comcast and Warner Brothers reached an agreement on distribution. This is not related to the casting, but the distribution of the Harry Potter series, as well as Comcast bundles. Max and Discovery Plus can now be distributed with streaming bundles by Comcast. Comcast-owned Sky will also distribute Max in the UK and Ireland, which is because Sky carries a lot of the HBO series there. So now they'll be able to say it's Sky Max or something. I don't know what they'll call it. Universal Warner Brothers Twisters has debuted as streamer Peacock's biggest Pay-One film ever in its 14 days on the platform. Pay-One being the first window for distribution after the theater run close. The previous biggest Peacock Pay-One film debut in its first 14 days was Universal's 7-time Christopher Nolan-directed Oscar winner Oppenheimer, is the way Deadline put it. That came out November 15th after a 120 theatrical day window to the service.
I guess that makes sense. Twisters being a little bit of a bigger popcorn blockbuster as opposed to a dour thinky
Also, 120-day window. That's in this day and age.
Yeah, in this
ridiculously
economy.
And if you don't mind losing Whamageddon, the BBC is going to air Wham! Last Christmas Unwrapped on December 14th. That's this coming Saturday. Whamageddon, of course, if we've talked about it on After Talk, it's, trying to get to December 25th without hearing Wham's Last Christmas in the wild. If you watch this documentary, I assume you will hear Wham's Last Christmas at some point during it.
Yeah, well, I guess at that point, I mean, per the rules, I mean, you're definitely doing it to yourself.
Yeah.
Although
absolutely.
you could go around and just like have like a on your phone and show it to people, shove it in their face.
Could you get AI to remove all instances of the song so you could just watch the documentary and get the information?
You know what? What's funny is I thought you were talking about like AR glasses that'll block out any of the song or the show.
That too. All right, let's move on to the buried treasure.
Most people want to know why they suddenly got rich.
Buried treasure.
Oh, my friends, Buried Treasure is the segment of the show where we talk about something we have been watching, just to share it with you. Brian, what you got?
Dude, I was time traveling this morning. I
Really?
was trying to hunt down. I was trying to find out if there was a higher quality feed of the old Scam School episodes than were on the YouTube, because I knew that there was, the RSS feed that was listed as high quality. And somebody suggested that I go to archive.org, and I just typed in revision 3, and it was time traveling back to 2008, 2009, 2010.
Oh, wow.
I just flipped channels, went program to program. It's great. It's great and a lot of fun. And they got a little Flash player that's decent enough. What's that?
That's excellent. They have a little Flash-like player there for you. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you can download them if you want to see the pixels bigger. There's some compressed stuff. But I was thinking about what an admirable thing archive.org has done. And to be there from the beginning was really cool.
I'm not going to lie. There's probably a hard drive or two around the house that has some Scam School edits on them here. I should probably look for them
I would
for you.
love to see those.
Yeah, I will take a look, because I'm almost certain there's a Mac Pro sitting in the garage that would have some on it.
That would be extraordinarily precious and sentimental to take a look at.
Yeah, no doubt. Anything else?
Yeah. I mean, I'm caught up on Lower Decks, but there's not much to say there outside of it's great. They focused on the Upper Deck people. To correct me if I'm wrong, but that was a parody of the Star Trek The Next Generation episode Lower Decks. Correct.
Right?
Yeah. It was a bit of a hat on a hat. And like it was enough of a hat on a hat that I didn't even feel like explaining it to Callie. Like it wasn't going to make it any better to know that they were riffing on at best
you
would
either
have
got
said,
it or you didn't. Yeah.
But that's in keeping with the theme. Now that I'm starting to realize it, like we had a riffing on the Anaphasic Lifeform Ghost episode. We had a riffing on like all of these have been direct one-to-ones of other episodes.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It's been a good season too. I've enjoyed every second of it. I want to recommend a show called When the Phone Rings, which I believe is on Netflix. The premise is that a guy is in a marriage of convenience, right? It's one of these like high corporate things. Apparently he was originally supposed to marry the newspaper. He's a titan of industry's son, and he was supposed to marry the newspaper editor's daughter, but then she backed out. So he married the second daughter, but they're in a loveless marriage. And he starts getting threatening phone calls. And the guy who's threatening him kidnaps the wife. This is all in the first episode. Somehow, we don't see how in the first episode, she gets away with the phone and decides, because they're in a loveless marriage, to keep it up. Because the phone has built-in voice disguising and VPN, and it's, this heavily secured phone. So she starts calling her husband, making the demands.
Oh, that's amazing.
And trying to get him to like divorce her basically by pretending to be the blackmailer.
So I'm going to guess that where this ends up is she begins to respect him because he discovers his inner badass to be the person.
It's still airing, so it's coming out like week to week. And I think we've just gotten to the point where next week's episode, there's going to be some truths come out, some secrets come out. But yeah, if you want to watch that, again, it's coming out week to week, so you can't watch all of it yet. But it's called When the Phone Rings.
Did the first
Netflix.
episode like fully hook you?
Yeah, it did. I actually reading the premise, I was like, it sounds okay. Let me try it. And then after the first episode, I'm like, it's a little perfectly over dramatic, right? Like it's doing the thing where it's like, okay, yeah, I'm fully in because this mystery is good, and they are building you up to want to know the mystery. So if you want to watch that, it's on Netflix. And if you got something we should be on the lookout for, email us cordkillers@gmail.com. You know, I don't have a secret phone, but I do have a secret.
I mean, if you did, you'd probably bury it someplace like in plain sight in your inbox.
Totally different topic. This Thursday on the Daily Tech Newsletter at freetechnewsletter.com, I'll be doing an experimental version of DTNS with Jason Howell.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Won't that be fun?
I know. It's going to be a blast. I'm looking forward to it. And you can get it for free. You can hear it as we experiment. Like, what if Jason and I did a little thing together? So go check that out, folks. freetechnewsletter.com.
Oh, who knows? Maybe the two of you have some chemistry. Maybe something exciting will come of it.
I don't know. I like the guy, though. He seems to like me. So, yeah, we're going to give it a whirl. See what happens. Now it's time to scan the horizon.
Send a scanning to avoid.
Scanning the horizon!
The news here is kind of that the Golden Globes survived, Brian. Remember when the Golden Globes had to just announce their winners because NBC wasn't going to air their stuff anymore? This wasn't even COVID related. This was controversies about selection and who got voting and all that. CBS now has the contract to air them, and everybody's back to pretending like the Golden Globes are relevant. Netflix and A24 are out in front in terms of distributor nominations on the film side, with 13 and 12 respectively. Netflix also dominating on the TV side with 23 nominations, 9 ahead of the next best, which is HBO Max. Interestingly, Squid Game Season 2 was nominated for Best Television Series despite not coming out until December 26th.
That was one that kicked me into detective mode, and
Yep.
I went to heroic lengths. I pressed one button on my phone and had my AI detective explain to me how the process works. This is one where it's like an International Federation of Journalists or whatever. It's their own group, and part of the selection process is they have screenings of stuff. So it doesn't say anywhere, much like the great documentary Air Bud, nowhere in the rule book does it say that the show has to be out to win a Golden Globe.
No,
but
it has to have aired by December 31st to qualify, apparently, and it will have. What if they don't?
that
they
would
haven't
be
done it
interesting,
yet.
like a disqualification, and they probably have a second place teed up.
Yeah, and I doubt Netflix would do it just to see what happens because it's Squid Game Season 2. It's going to get too many people to watch. But it would be interesting if they're like, actually, no, we're not going to air it, but let's see if it wins.
Well, if nothing else, that would be a bad look after the promotion they've done for this day after Christmas extravaganza.
But yeah, it's also totally normal for these award shows to whoever the voting members are, like the Academy in the Academy of Motion Pictures, to have screenings and give screeners to people. So that part makes sense to me. Disney added an ESPN tile to the Disney Plus service on Tuesday. That gives Disney Plus subscribers a limited selection of live sports and documentaries at no additional charge. If you're an ESPN Plus subscriber as well, you'll be able to access most of the service's games and shows through Disney Plus now. Just like if you're a Hulu subscriber, you can get a bunch of the Hulu stuff. ESPN Plus is not ESPN. It is extra games and services and on-demand shows beyond what ESPN offers on cable. For instance, the entire catalog of 30 for 30 documentaries is on ESPN Plus. That is one of the things that you'll get on Disney Plus without having to pay extra for the ESPN Plus subscription. A full ESPN service with everything, all the stuff you get on TV and everything, is expected to launch next August. We've talked about that before on the show. It will be interesting to see if that is included on Disney Plus as well, which I imagine it would be.
Yeah, I don't know. You get one more tile, Disney Plus, and then you go on Brian's naughty list, because I don't know what a Disney Plus is if it's just a bunch of channels.
They've been taking away tiles too, though. So
Really?
yeah, I don't notice that, but I'm like, this seems like the same number of tiles. What am I missing here? So,
Okay, well, as long as they do that, as long as there are 5 or 6 pillars and that's it, then that's a number my monkey brain can hold on to.
totally. Apple TV Plus has now launched as an add-on for Prime Video in UK, Australia, and Canada. So if you're an Amazon subscriber there, it was already available in the US. That's where it launched first, but it's now expanded.
Very cool.
The Chiefs Raiders Amazon Prime Video Black Friday game. So traditionally, 2 games play on Thursday of Thanksgiving on broadcast TV, and Amazon, because it has Thursday night football the rest of the season, wanted something to air the week of Thanksgiving. So they started a Black Friday game. That game averaged 13.51 million viewers, peaking at 17.43 million. On top of last year's peak of 9 million. So, looks like quite a few more people watched the Amazon Prime Video Black Friday game this year than last. Now, the NFL in general is getting more viewership overall, so that's part of it, but not all of it.
So I keep making a joke about how, Amazon is a logistics company that makes moving picture shows that make you cry. And when you think of it starting off as a bookstore, now I realize it's just powering all of Christmas. It's just all of the holidays is just owned by Amazon now.
Finally, Netflix Japan subscribers topped 10 million. The subscriber base has doubled in the last 4 years, and it's because of Japanese shows made by Netflix, but only 2 English language series, a live-action adaptation of the manga One Piece, and the 4th season of Stranger Things have topped the viewing rankings in Japan. Everything else has been in Japanese.
Very cool.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the cheddar.
Got mail.
So we put out the call for sequels that were better than the original, and we got a few answers. Scott says, I know it's originally a TV series going to a movie, so hopefully it still counts. I feel there's a lot of support for Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan being better than Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Motion Picture was slow and cerebral. It was slow even by 70s standards, whereas Wrath of Khan felt like a return to form.
I will vouch for the fact that Wrath of Khan is unambiguously superior from Star Trek: The Motion Picture. However, when you go from an episodic, nature of the original series of Star Trek, you're kind of baked into the fact that you're already primed for a fundamentally different type of story from one movie to the next one. So it makes sense that there'd be wiggle room on that one.
Yeah, and not that this matters, because we're just asking for a sequel that's better than the original, but Star Trek: The Motion Picture came out of planning for a second Star Trek series, TV series.
Oh, that's right.
So there were some effects on the movie that were like originally meant for TV, right? Storylines and characters and such. Whereas The Wrath of Khan was really their first time saying, we're just using the characters to tell a story. We're just going to tell a movie story from the beginning. Kyle wondered if anyone considers Top Gun Maverick superior to Top Gun, because Kyle does. I personally think the sequel is using nostalgia as too much of a crutch, but my opinions tend to be the opposite of the popular opinion.
Yeah, that one. I didn't like the sequel as much as the original.
I think most people consider the original better there. But he also suggested The Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton versus every MCU movie with Mark Ruffalo playing the Hulk.
I mean that that is kind of the problem / joy of the MCU is that it blurs all those lines. Because like when the Avengers came out, I'll never forget Dan Trachtenberg saying, "It is the best Iron Man movie. It is the best Hulk movie. It is the best Thor movie. It is the," and you're like, "Whoa, he's right. It's a sequel to all of them."
Yeah. No, so that's a really good one. Chris has a little anecdote. We needed a TV for the spare room, so I ordered a cheap Vizio off Amazon. Upon setting it up, it told me if I declined to share my viewing data, then smart TV functions would be disabled. Imagine my shock when it was telling the truth. And then I realized I now had a TV that just let me select inputs and nothing else. A dumb TV. I finally found a way to get one. Stuck a Roku streaming stick in it, and I'm looking forward to being able to upgrade that eventually without ever worrying about the TV getting too slow. Thanks, Vizio.
I mean, that's actually a real life hack. I mean, It's like, because part of the reason those TV sets are as cheap as they are is because they may be selling them at a loss and then planning to make it up on ad revenues later on. And then, of course, that bloatware, it's now, oh my God, in the studio at home, Tom, it's miserable. I turn on the TV. All I want to do is get the second screen of my desktop on there. Takes about 30 seconds just to get to.
Oh, wow.
It's getting worse and worse and worse. Maybe I'll take a video of it just so you can see what the experience is.
And as long as not too many people do it, this will work great. So, you didn't hear it from us. Your boss, Daniel from Minneapolis, writes, "Hello, Tom, Brian, and Amos. I was going through my YouTube music recap and I came across something that I think is hilarious. My cat, Tally, listened to a total of 12,358 minutes over 205 hours or over 8 full days of Cordkillers this year."
Woohoo!
Let me explain.
Up the cat demo.
This year, I set up a Google Home automation to play Cordkillers at 10:05 p.m. over my Google Home speakers every day to have some noise in the house to make it appear that someone is home when I go on vacation. I thought it would play one episode and then stop. Little did I realize that it would not stop after one episode. It just kept playing episode after episode. My in-laws who came over to feed the cat every day apparently did not turn it off most days. So my cat, I believe, has listened to the most Cordkillers than anyone else for the year 2024. Imagine all the wild speculation.
That includes us, Tom. I believe the cats listen to more than we have.
Hey, good. Tally, stop. Tally. Good.
Tally. Okay, good kitty. Good kitty.
Just finished the first episode of The Shield, says Mike. Glad I paused spoiler in time before you spoiled the twist. I'd like to recommend adding the granddaddy of that era of gritty cop shows, Homicide: Life on the Street, for full experience consideration. It was David Simon's first show before The Wire, and it's just recently available for streaming on Peacock. Thank you, Mike. He also put in a vote for Scrubs.
Yeah, dude, I love that idea, although we'll have to push it back on the queue because otherwise it'd be The Wire, The Shield, and then Homicide. That'd be a lot of the same
we don't want to be
flavor.
all Homicide all the time.
Yeah.
But good one to put in the queue. And then don't see a name on this one, but to me it makes sense, writes this person, that the most of the big box office movies are for pre-existing IP. These IP all have followings, and for the studios, it's a safe bet. I looked at Box Office Mojo, and compared to 2019 to 2024, 2019 had 151 films with a domestic gross. 2024 had 124 films with domestic gross. So either fewer movies were released in 2024 or fewer people went out to see films. 2019 had 81 films gross more than 30 million domestic. 2024 only had 44. A 20% drop in films, but a 50% drop in films making more than 30 million. This makes me think there are just far fewer people seeing movies. Of that same subset of film, in 2019, 45% were existing IP. In 2024, it was 55%. So I don't think we are getting that many more sequels. I think we might actually be getting fewer, but the only films getting people out of their house are sequels.
Yeah, that sounds right. He actually sent over a Excel spreadsheet breaking down. If you look at 2019, every film is also an existing IP. It was Endgame, Lion King, Rise of Skywalker, Frozen 2, Toy Story 4, Captain Marvel, Spider-Man: Far From Home, Aladdin, Joker, Jumanji: The Next Level. Yeah, I mean, kind of same song, right?
Yeah, no, and I think it's great to point out that as fewer films came out or as fewer films made money, the ones that are existing IP stayed up at the top and become a higher percentage because people go to see them. Thank you. It was Andrew Bradley. Thank you, Andrew Bradley, for sending that along. And thank you, everyone, for supporting us and being here for us. Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. And we are live, twitch.tv/Night Attack, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. I reckon we'll talk to you next time.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
But the coolest thing is, because of circumstances beyond our control, we're putting Cordkillers and the full experience out in one file this week.
Yeah,
so
dude.
don't go anywhere, folks, or stop now, depending on what, on what you want, because we are about to go right into the full experience. Third episode of The Shield, the lowest ranked episode, 402, Grave. So fair warning.
Do we need to take a quick break, Brian?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
All right. We will.
Give me a chance
This will
to
give
update the
people a
scroll.
chance to pause if they don't want to hear us do the full experience.
And give me a chance to explain why. I'm currently in Washington trying to pack my wife's apartment up, and I do not have my full slew of computer equipment and programs available. So instead of making everybody wait an inordinate amount of time, I figured we'd just go ahead and do it this way this week. That way you can at least get your content, and then as Tom suggested, I will break out the full experience later on a separate thing so that you can maintain your catalog if you're still keeping track of everything individually.
I mean, that's a great story, Amos, but Spot Monk already saw through it. It's a writer strike. Cordkillers writers are on strike. Just them. They're not even part of a union. They just went on strike. The weirdest thing is the writers are me, Brian, and Amos. We all went on strike against ourselves, and we're refusing to negotiate. So
Look,
this could drag on for a while. Yeah,
it's a tight-knit group, though.
Yeah, you'd think that we'd be able to find common ground with ourselves, but so far to no avail. So
it's really the fight within us that's holding us back. It really is.
That's so true. That's always
it's internal strife.
Yeah. Well, Brian, are you ready for the full experience?
Oh, you better believe it.
Let's do it.
All right.
Welcome to the full experience, episode 3 of The Shield. If you're new, the full experience breaks down series by watching 4 episodes to get kind of a slice of what the show was about. We watched the first episode, the pilot. We watched the ultimate episode, the highest rated one. We watched the lowest episode, the show at its worst. And then we watched the last episode, the finale. We have watched the first and the ultimate of The Shield. And this week we are watching the lowest rated one, 402, season 4, episode 2, Grave, which first aired March 22nd, 2005. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood.
Hey, Tom. You know what this reminded me of? I would say the closest analog of lowest rated experience, I believe, would be when we did this with The West Wing. Because for the crime of not being about President Bartlett, that perfectly fine episode about that was kind of prescient of an entire genre of media coverage happened to be the lowest rated. I feel like this one got dinged. It's a victim of circumstance for a number of things that didn't age well, not least of which was a word for a trans person that is now a slur, that didn't have the bite at that time that it does nowadays. It also had, as a prominent plot point, the now fully debunked and embarrassing chapter in medical history of the association between autism and vaccines. And it also, and even I noticed. I noticed that how much the world has changed in terms of HIV in the last 20 years. Like, it's so strange to me that they made a big deal about how she could go to jail for manslaughter for being a prostitute who's HIV positive. And nowadays, just the medicine has advanced so much. It's obviously a very huge deal, but I would be very curious to know if when the last time anybody went to prison for prostitution while being HIV positive happened.
Yeah, those are all three certainly topics that if you were to make it set in the present, you would treat differently. They're also topics that read to me as this is 2005. If I were doing a period piece, I actually might write these pretty closely to what they are because they're very true to what was happening in 2005. I got the sense that this was a low rated episode because it's piping between plot lines. You're moving Aceveda out. You're moving Glenn Close in. You're positioning Vic on the board. You're positioning Shane on the board. And if you're watching this, you just want to get to the next thing, right? If you're watching this linearly, you're like, yeah, okay, I know this is all in the works. Just get me to something happening. I want something to happen. Watching it out of context, though, where you don't have that tension built up, I thought it was a great episode. I'm like, this is well executed, right? Well acted. Feels like a very typical episode of The Shield.
I did end up playing one of my favorite games, which is seeing how much production I can see in the reflection of sunglasses. Definitely caught some cameramen. It was a lot of fun. I almost sent you guys a picture, but I was like, oh, they don't care.
Well, it just happens a lot, but yeah, you're definitely going to see that.
No, I can definitely vouch that it was a single camera for the reverse shot, and that the producer was standing behind him. Because there was only one of
the sunglasses. I don't know if Amos is ready to join us yet, but Amos has been watching these for the first time. So you've never seen The Shield, right, Amos?
No, that is correct.
So we've now had you watch the pilot episode, the second to last episode, which was the highest rated one, and now this one. Where does this leave your head?
I'm going to try to frame this carefully. The pilot episode was very dramatic, very skillful, and very impactful. Like, just the entire thing, it felt like you were really going somewhere. The ultimate episode, the second to last episode, it felt like things were coming to a close and everything seemed really, really important. And you could tell that like the story had happened, but you were still dealing with the same people. This episode, because that it feels transitory, all of that was gone. And the only thing that was left, the only thing really driving me through this episode was how well it was acted and shot. Well, like, I mean, a lot of the plot points aren't there. You got some hits there, once in a while this is going on, but it's really just so transitory. So especially with, like you mentioned, Glenn Close taking over for Acevedo and things like that. And, it really felt like I'm watching something. I'm in the middle of a story that doesn't have a necessary beginning and end right now. This is all transitory.
Yeah,
and
this is all in that
aspect. Yeah, in that aspect, even though it was really like the acting was on point, the direction, the production were all on point. It still felt like a letdown because there wasn't. I didn't feel a huge drive like I did the other two. So it's a great episode in and of itself, but compared to the last two, I could see like this is definitely going to be the lowest of what we're watching for these four.
Well, to be honest, I think this particular episode, and again, I'm kind of shocked that, I don't know, it's kind of a compliment to the series that this is the lowest rated one. But the vibe of this is the bulk of the series because it's constantly one thread gets tied up and then two more like, oh, but now we're in trouble on this. And even, it's been long enough since we watched this, a decade, that watching it now, it's like, I don't remember half of these plot lines, but just this lyrical rhythm, this driving, oh man, we're tap dancing on the edge of a cliff the entire time. it felt good. It felt good in a way that neither the first episode nor the second to last episode or the finale will feel. Like this is as close to the week over week experience as you're going to get in the full experience.
And to be honest, that might be really great on a weekly basis, but just in isolation, a single episode without much leading into it and without taking us anywhere afterwards. Because I intentionally stopped watching because I wanted to just hit next and keep watching.
Yeah, right.
But I had to stop it for the spirit of the show.
Yeah.
And it just felt empty because I didn't have anything else coming from, and I didn't end up going into anything. But it felt like there could have been something there. It's just in isolation, this episode just felt empty. It felt like churn. It felt like something going forward without, I didn't move anywhere on the map. I was moving, but I didn't proceed on the map anywhere.
It's interesting that you picked that up, even though you haven't been watching it week to week. Whereas I, who have watched the entire series, looked at this and went, this is a pretty good episode. Because I know where it's going. Even if I, like you, Brian, I've forgotten some of these plot lines. I'm like, yeah, but I kind of remember how that got wrapped up now that you've reminded me of it. So I don't have that tension and impatience that you have when you come at it fresh.
Did you recognize Peggy Bundy / Leela?
Oh,
yeah. I was wondering why my Sons of Anarchy got mixed in with my Shield.
Oh, of course, yeah. So yeah, you were primed for that. That was kind of a surprising twist. I guess. Do you remember the time that Walton Goggins showed up in Sons of Anarchy?
Sons of Anarchy, yeah, and they aired it around the same time too, right? The Shield and Sons of Anarchy. They sort of overlap.
That might be where I recognize him from. Yeah. That could be.
And actually on theme, he plays a cross-dressing person in that.
Anthony Anderson from Blackish plays Andre in Blackish. I forgot that he was the Kingpin.
Yeah,
in this. Michael Pena. I'm like, he's
the Michael Pena that I know.
Right, and of course Glenn Close. The only thing that really stuck out to me, not even in a negative way, but in a sort of like, well, that didn't evolve, is you had another Vic and Dutch, Vic making fun of Dutch in the office. I'm like, that's just a note they kept ringing through this entire series. Yeah.
I did watch this one with my wife. We were sitting together when we watched this one, and she did not watch the Ultimate, so she's only watched the first episode and then this one, and her big takeaway was that the tones of racism that she felt in the first episode were still there, but they were more subtle and more realistic, more lifelike to her experience in this episode. Instead, so it wasn't as in your face, but it was definitely still clearly present.
They had done a better job of hewing closer to reality in her opinion. Yeah.
Right.
Gotcha.
Also, sadly, this episode is the most in the full experience. Whatever you got in this episode is the bulk of the Lemansky you're going to get out of the Shield, and that is strange because Lem's story was very important. I mean, I guess since we're spoiling, we already got to the Ultimate. When Shane betrayed and kills Lem, I mean that had. Oh my God! Like I have goosebumps just now, even remembering the tension in the air from Goggins's performance on that.
Yeah, and it's he's there. There's a lot of characters from the Ultimate episode who are in this, but they're not particularly present. If that's the way you could phrase it. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, the quality of the show is still there. The production value and the direction and the angles and I mean, I could watch the framing and have probably another half hour to think about that. That it's really a well done show, just in general, without worrying about the script necessarily. The plot line going through it, but the performance of it and the execution of it is really well done. And I love finding shows like this that I just completely missed. And then to go back and look at them, like, damn, they were on point on this show.
You also in this episode got a that escalated quickly moment in the previously on where they just casually throw in there. Oh, by the way, Aceveda got raped.
That I remember being a long, slow buildup with lots of hints of it reverberating in his head. And you got a couple of those hints in this episode, but it wasn't even the biggest ones I remember.
Oh, that's right. Because he starts to see a prostitute as a kind of a therapist, a BDSM therapist. There's some really interesting subcultures that get nodded to in primetime cable, extended cable television was not the place that you would normally see a lot of these subcultures.
Yep.
All right, so next week we finish up with the episode after the ultimate episode, season 7, episode 12, Possible Kill Screen. It is a longer episode, I believe, because it is the actual finale. Wait, I said it wrong. 713, Family Meeting. Possible Kill Screen is the one we watched last week. Season 7, episode 13, Family Meeting is what we will watch next week. And I mean, Brian and I have seen it. So Amos, any expectations for this?
Yeah, do you want to make your prediction on how everything shakes out?
I think I actually made some prediction when we talked about it last time. I think my big question was if Vic was actually going to turn in his partner after doing the final the final big bust, and having seen this episode and the two others, I still don't know where that will go, but I think in the end, I would like to think that he's going to be he's going to somehow sacrifice himself so that the people around him don't suffer, or find a way to make it to where it's all minimized. But I just don't know how true that's going to be, because it would be so against the character the Vic that I've come to understand, although briefly.
It occurs to me this is also a good episode for you to have watched, Amos, in that you're seeing the strained relationship between Vic and Shane. And Shane is off on his own. He's in a different department. He's in Vice now. And in his head, he's doing the same thing that he did with Vic as the strike team. But it's really interesting because whereas Vic was able to handle things with an iron fist, but also a very nuanced understanding of the political power of the Game of Thrones between all the gangs and stuff. Shane is just a dumb redneck who is just like, what? I don't see what the difference is. We just take drugs and we just have sex with prostitutes and we just do. And it's like a teenager's understanding of a Scorsese film. And it's just like, just because you have shoot 'em ups that's not how it goes. And you see him continue to make bad decisions, as we already have, over and over.
Yep. Yeah. There's a clear level of nuance that is eluded Shane in his capturing of Vic's spirit.
Well, there you go, folks. That is the last episode of the full experience. Coming next week, The Shield, Season 7, Episode 13, Family Meeting. We will have a family meeting of our own to discuss it on the next episode of the full experience. You get these earlier if you're a patron, patreon.com/Cordkillers. Talk to you next time.